welcome to the Effortless Swimming Podcast. My guest today is Anthony McDonald, who is a swimmer who's been going through some of our courses and been working with a little bit and made some incredible improvements over the last couple of months. So I really wanted to get you on the podcast, Anthony, to talk about what you've done to see a significant improvement in your times. I'll bring up those times before we get into it. So your 400's gone from an 8:25 to a 7:13. And your 200 meter time's gone from a 4:05 to a 3:25. So really big improvements across the board there. So first of all, welcome and well done on those improvements so far.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me. I guess when you start from such a low base, you've got plenty of room for improvement. So it's been nice to see those improvements for sure.
That's what I like to say to anyone who comes to our clinics. You know, there's sometimes they're a bit nervous, or sometimes they're maybe a bit embarrassed that they're quite beginner. But the thing is, like, you've got so much room for improvement that the best swimmers, they've only got those 1%ers mostly. Where if you're starting from a low base, it's quite exciting to see those big gains and big improvements. So for those that are listening, what's your background in terms of swimming and sport and triathlon? Because I know you're training for triathlons, but where did it all sort of start for you?
So like growing up, I played a lot of field sports. So AFL was probably my main sport. Growing up, played a little bit of basketball. So like a lot of running and like riding bikes and things like that came quite natural as well. And then I joined the military when I was 25. So I joined the Air Force. So got into a little bit more cross training, there's a lot of endurance and relative strength, not a lot of swimming, especially in the Air Force. Did a fair bit of like CrossFit style training, and then got into some Olympic weightlifting. And then 3 to 4 years ago, we had a group of friends who were training in a gym together, and they all decided to jump on the triathlon bandwagon. So I gave that a crack for about 7 or 8 months, and then COVID hit and all the races got cancelled. So that sort of demotivated me a little bit. And swimming, being pretty poor at it, was definitely the first thing to go and probably the easiest thing to cut away. And like you said there before, like if you're bad at something, it's usually a lot harder to be consistent at it. So that for me was definitely the first thing to go. And then got back into a little bit of weight training and Olympic lifting. And then my wife, who trained for a triathlon post-pregnancy. So I think she was like 9 months post having a baby, did a triathlon down at Husky. And it was just a really good group of people, and all our friends did it as well. And that sort of motivated me to go, okay, well, I really enjoy training with these guys and girls again. And it started to jump back in and train for it. But the biggest weakness for me was definitely the swim. I mean, biking and running, just by doing them, you can sort of see improvements quite drastically, where swimming being such a skill-based sport, it didn't really matter what my level of fitness was. It was more that, the fitter I got didn't mean that I got better in the water. I felt like I was almost stuck in the mud every time I got in the water.
The first email you sent, you said originally you were struggling to get under the minute for a 50 free, and then you went through the catch challenge, and you were down to a 55 for the 50. And then you went through the 8-week course inside our membership there, and like pretty quickly you started to see some improvements there. So what was it what were some of those things that you felt made a difference to bring those times down so drastically, which was about like 10, almost like sort of 12 seconds per 100 for that 400 time trial? Like, what were some of those things for you that maybe you didn't know before, and then you went through this and you're like, okay, put this in place and you can actually swim faster?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing when I was initially swimming, I'd think about like 10 or 15 different things, like when I'm swimming, and knowing, coming from like a sports background or a weightlifting background, it's like, or even as a coach, it's like just try and focus on one thing. But when I was in the water, it's like, oh, what am I doing with my kick? What am I doing with my breathing? What am I doing with my catch? And Going into that 5-day cats challenge, initially it was really broken down. So, hey, focus on the entry into the water and extending the arm, and then out in front, where are your hands? And when you pull through the water, like, where's that elbow position? And probably each session just focusing on that one thing was really beneficial for me. And trying to discard what the times were when I was doing those drills or doing the swims. I wasn't really focused on the clock. So having those drills and just focusing on one, maybe two things. And then when I'd go to swim, is just continue to focus on and build on that thing as well. So the 5-day catch was great for me, and I saw big improvements. And then when I went to that 8-week challenge, having that week to focus on those one or two things, especially within the stroke, were really beneficial for me to go, well, you can just continue to build on this, and through the session, just pick one or two things and just concentrate on that.
Yeah. So keeping it simple and just not thinking about multiple things at once made a big difference for you. And did you have much no idea of what you should be doing prior to this? Like, did you have much coaching in the past, or was it just get in and turn the arms over, kick a bit?
Yeah, like I would watch videos and jump in the water and try and replicate that. Or we've got some really good swimmers in our group who would give advice, but you sort of don't want to take away from their session either. And even jumping into squads, I've jumped into squads previously, and nothing to take. I'm not taking anything away from those squads. They were good from an atmosphere point of view, but from a coaching point of view, it was more of a, hey, do a 50 on the 115, and then there was just a whistle blown, and I'm like, well, like, my fitness is great, but I'm not getting any quicker in the water. So yeah, like, prior to this, I didn't really have that that coaching or that specificity within the training. So yeah, that's definitely been beneficial as well.
And you also mentioned in one of your emails that you feel like sometimes you're going backwards with the drills, or it feels a bit slow with the drills, but then you have these good sessions where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, like I'm feeling good, I'm moving through the water well, and then some sessions where maybe you feel a bit heavy again, and like might be swimming through mud. So you sort of a few ups and downs with some of the sessions there. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I mean, like, you've explained it pretty well, but some sessions you feel fantastic in the water, and you've got position of the drills, and I can't put my finger on it, but sometimes you just feel good in the water. And then you'll come back 24 hours later, and you're like, I'm moving nowhere. I haven't got any feel for the water. And I guess sometimes, like especially for me, I get a little bit frustrated with that for sure, and probably try and overthink the stroke. And that's a bit more retrospective in looking back on it, going, but when you're in the heat of the moment of training and you want to continue to improve, and you see other people around you that are better swimmers and probably not necessarily at the same fitness level, but they're just better in the water. So that's definitely frustrating. But just at the end of the session, knowing that, like, 12 weeks ago you were swimming a 8:25 and now you're swimming you've improved by over a minute, like, that's always motivating as well, like, to see improvement. But yeah, I continue to have days where I feel great and days where I feel really, really bad, and the bad days are probably more often than the good days, to be totally honest. But I guess that's the thing about being, like, learning a new sport or learning a new skill, is being vulnerable in that and just accepting it for what it is, and knowing that you're going to take one step forward and sometimes 3 steps back within a week. So
yeah, and it's even the very best swimmers in the world experience that. Probably not as often. I think, like, when you're learning something, you might get, if I'm working with someone in a clinic, they might get 1 out of every 4 strokes right initially when they're making a change, and then we just want to increase the consistency of that over the coming weeks and months. But the best swimmers in the world experience that too. was watching a video on a guy, Caleb Dressel, he won the 50 and the 100 free at the recent Olympics, and he was journaling every day, and he was going through his journals and his logbooks for swimming. And a couple of weeks out from Olympic trials, one of the things he wrote was just like, yeah, I suck at this. I hate it. I'm going to give it away. Like, and this is the fastest guy in the world. So like, even he has sessions where he's just like, I can't swim anymore.
Yeah.
So it's part and parcel with it. And I think if you know to expect it, if you can prepare yourself mentally to know that that's going to happen on occasions, and just push through it. And tomorrow's another day. I mean, my equivalent, I feel, is surfing, because I didn't have to do that as a kid, took it up as an adult. And there'll be times when I'm out surfing where I feel like I'm just surfing so well and like, I've got this thing now. Then the next session is just like struggling to stand up on the wave. Like there's times where it's just so frustrating, like you're going backwards. But it's the comparison, the analogy I like there is it's kind of like walking up a mountain with a yo-yo, where like you're always going to be continuing to go up if you work on these things. But the yo-yo is like, you'll go up, but then you'll also go down. But as long as you just keep progressing, you will eventually get up that mountain and see those improvements. What does the swing feel like when it feels good?
I guess for me, like I feel like I'm on top of the water, like almost like, swimming on top of the water, but also that pull through the water is being able to, I almost feel like I'm grabbing the water and pulling it past myself, as opposed to sometimes I feel like I'm just swinging my arms through the water. And I'm not really capturing like any load out in front or capturing that water. So being able to pull myself through the water, that's probably the thing that I look for when I'm swimming is, hey, can I get that feeling of being able to grab the water and pull it through? And if I get that, I usually feel pretty good. So, but yeah, the bad days, it feels like it's like a windmill, just sinking through the water and not grabbing anything. So,
yeah. And is there any particular thing that you are thinking about or you focus on when you're trying to get that hold of the water?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of things. Is initially with every session, I try and do drills, focusing on that entry to the water, the catch. I do a lot of sculling and the dog paddle drill. They're probably the ones that I do every session regardless. And they probably set me up. So, for instance, an example of a session might be I'd jump in the water and do 100 to 200 meter warm up before I'd even start the drills. And that 100 to 200 meters never feels good. And then I'd be able to then going through some sculling and dog paddle drills or even single arm drills. That just gets me a better feel for the water. And then from there, the feeling within the water always progresses and gets better, no matter what the session is. But yeah, I mean, the setup of the catch and that pull through are probably the two biggest things. And then on top of that is, since the video analysis that you gave me in that breathing position and also over rotating, I try and concentrate on those things a lot as well. So focus on those drills that you gave me and try and do some type of drill that replicates the drills that you gave me in most sessions as well.
And talk to me about that breathing position. So what were you doing, and then what are you looking to do instead?
Yeah, so for me, every time I went to my left-hand side, which was my breathing side, I'd pop my head up. So my head would almost tilt up and then rotate through. And then with that rotation, I would also over-rotate with that catch as well. So the shoulder that was in the water would actually rotate too much. So it'd probably almost be to 90 degrees, to be totally honest. So then from there, I was just off balance. And probably pushing my head up would then no doubt push my legs down. And I've always had issues with feeling like my feet were dragging along the bottom of the water, bottom of the pool, majority of the time. So just being able to focus on the bottom of the pool a little bit more, as opposed to up when I breathe. And then also just being on that swivel, if you like, and just looking out to the side has definitely helped me, and not over rotating, which has felt weird. It feels like I'm almost square at a lot of the times when I'm in the water, but because I was over rotating so much, I guess that's the feeling that's going to be, is because I'm trying to change a position, which I thought was right, and now it feels like I'm like swimming square a little bit.
Yeah, it's so often the case with that one, and I mean, it's such a common one, is that like either turning the head too far and then the shoulders go with it and then the arm drops. It happens with so many swimmers that I coach. And I was doing an analysis for someone in our stroke analysis coaching yesterday, and we've almost fixed it. But what was causing him to over rotate and for that arm to drop was a couple of things. He was first of all, he thought he had to roll side to side. He thought more rotation the better. So he just thought he had to do more than what he was actually doing. So do more than what he actually had to. He was also trying to reach out as far as possible. It's like, this thing is, as long as I can get, the better as well. So we've had to sort of tune that back a little bit. And we've also just had to, he's sort of had to force himself to keep his arm out in front for longer through that reach phase before he starts moving it down. And not just stopping and pausing, but just slow it down through there. Take your time. Be patient with it. And now he's really close to it now. And once he gets it, his whole stroke and timing is just going to be so much better and more efficient. But it's just it's just a matter of being willing to put up with something that feels very different than what you used to. So it sounds like it's probably quite similar for you. And most people are like that on their breathing stroke. It's if they didn't have to breathe, the head would stay down and the stroke can stay pretty good. But when they turn to breathe, they either turn their head too far or the shoulders too far, and that's where they lose their good catch or whatever it might be. So if you can have the breathing impact the rest of the stroke as little as possible, then that's sort of the goal. But it just takes a little bit of, I think, patience with that arm extending out the front there, and then just overdoing that side of things too. Like, it's okay to hang out for ages out there just to start with, and then you can bring it back until you're in the right sort of timing.
I think it's hard. I think it's hard too. There's like, the internet is an amazing thing, and YouTube especially, and anyone that's learning something new, me personally, I'll troll YouTube to see what's out there from an instructional point of view. And sometimes what I interpret a drill to be is, rotate, and you're on your side. You're like, oh yeah, I've got to rotate and be on my side. Or they'll be like, reach for the end of the pool. You're like, okay, I'm going to reach for the end of the pool as far as I can. So probably over exaggerate like what the intended output of a lot of the videos are as well. So having someone that coaches is definitely a benefit.
There's so much nuance to all of that stuff that it's so easy to take something and then just take it too far. And with most things, I find you want the Goldilocks approach, like not too little, not too much, just that that in between. For most things. So, but I get it. Like, it's just very easy to take something and just go with it. You talked about in your email, like, one of the things that helped you was posture. So what do you think you're doing before with your posture when you're swimming?
Oh, I definitely wasn't thinking about my glutes or my legs. So I just thought, if I'm strong enough in my upper body, surely that'll pull me through the water, and don't worry too much about the drag. But yeah, just it's almost like engaging my belly button so it pushes through the sky, and keeping my glutes on. And for sure, like, that's definitely something I can continue to improve, because 25 meters into a lap, I'm not really thinking about it squeezing my butt cheeks together. So that can definitely improve. But also, like, being a cue that you give is being proud in the chest, and keeping extended through the head as well, and not being like a little like a turtle almost. So keeping long through the water has definitely helped, and staying engaged. And probably the kick is the other one on top of that as well, is not kicking too much. Like, if I was kicking, I'd be like, big kicks are the way to go. So keeping those like in a little bucket, another cue that you give, has definitely helped.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And in terms of distance with your swimming, do you feel more comfortable swimming longer distances, or is there like a sort of cap at the moment that you couldn't swim further than? Where are you at in terms of the longer distance?
Like distance at the moment is feeling pretty comfortable. I wouldn't say I'd be able to hold those speeds that I did in the time trials for the 1.9, and that's the goal, is to try and swim a 145, 150 for 1.9. So yeah, I think I could swim the distance. It's just at the moment it's at like probably a minute per 100 per 50 pace, so 2-minute hundreds. And if I can continue to get that down, that's what I'm trying to aim towards.
Yeah, nice. And I mean that comes with time, and I think if you've got any workouts, like I like to have 2 or 3 go-to workouts in the lead up to an event, where like over time you can just see that improvement and progression, and it's about being able to sort of sustain that pace over longer distances. So just doing the sets that can help with it. Like, for example, that might be a set of, like, you might do some warm up and then you have like 2100s. Maybe you do it on 15 seconds rest, might be 15 or 20 seconds rest, and just see if you can hold the same pace for all those 20. And if you do that every 2 weeks and over the course of a couple of months, you can just see how you're tracking with it. So having those go-to sets can certainly help. And I mean, you looks like you're being really consistent with how often you're getting in the water, and you mentioned that's helped a lot as well. Like, you're getting in quite a few times a week by the look of it.
Yeah, and that was probably a goal early on, is to make sure that I was getting in the water 4 or 5 times a week. Like, my approach to most things is, if you're really poor at it, then doing it more often than not is probably going to be of benefit. So, and especially swimming, because it doesn't really impact the legs of the biking or running. So getting in the water more consistently didn't really have a detriment to those other 2. If anything, it was probably beneficial for it. So I found that really important, is to make sure, like, minimum of 4 out to 5 a week. I've seen the biggest improvements. And last time when I was training for the try, it was more like 2 to 3 sessions. Like 3 sessions would be a max, because I was just avoiding it. I was like, if I could go for a run or a bike or a swim, I'm going to choose the other 2. I'm not going to choose the swim. But this time through, I've probably flipped that. And leading up to the race, I probably won't swim 5 times a week. But I definitely try and keep it at 4 times a week.
Yeah, nice. And what's do you feel differently about your swimming now than you did last year?
Yeah. I think going to the pool and knowing you've got something to work on, and not always looking at times, has probably been the biggest change in headspace for me. Is like, just even this afternoon, if I go to the pool, it's like, okay, just pick 1 or 2 things and just really nut down and work on those, even through your sets. Like, if we've got, for instance, I don't know, 6 200s, it's like, in those 200s, don't be concerned about the time, just be concerned about working on the things that you've done in the drills. And that's made swimming a lot more relaxing for me. Not comparing my times to what I did last week. It's more comparing, what can I just stay focused on that 1 or 2 things. So that's been a huge benefit and a huge motivator, because in a session you can feel really good about, well, I've nailed down that 1 or 2 things that I was working on. So the sessions always come out as a win as opposed to a negative.
Yeah, it's that's right. Like, it's good to sort of see the time, see where you're at. But if you've got that longer term approach of, look, if I can just train myself to hold good form over distance, and not every session I'm going to be breaking records on my Garmin or anything, and that longer term approach, it comes. And especially when you are changing your stroke, it can feel kind of clunky, and you can have those ups and down sessions. And sometimes it doesn't feel great, sometimes it feels good, but over time it's going to get more consistent, and it's going to feel better more often. And I like that approach that you're taking to it. It's what I see A lot of the swimmers that I work with who have really good success is they've got that same sort of approach to their swimming. So yeah, it's great to see, because so many triathletes like yourself, it's often not a matter of I need to get fitter. Yeah, swim fitness and strength is a bit different to that on the bike and the run, but for the most part, that improvement will come from better technique and then being able to hold that better technique over the course of their race. So sounds like you're well on track.
Yeah, but I've probably made a lot of mistakes though leading into that. I probably spent a year going the other way and didn't see any improvement. So lesson learned.
Yeah, gotcha. And what about someone who's listening to this who might be in a similar situation to yourself? They might be training for a triathlon and they might be a bit frustrated with their swim. What advice would you have to people who want to get faster with their swimming?
Yeah, I think like the biggest benefit for me was signing up and committing to something and making sure that you've got that structure within the week, and having someone look at your stroke, that's been a huge benefit. But again, I'd just keep back and keep reinforcing is just try and make small changes. It's impossible to make huge changes to your stroke, and taking off 30 seconds per 100 in a couple of weeks, I don't think that's feasible for most people. So just trying to make small changes and small improvements in a long-term approach and just be consistent. And that's the same with majority of training, is if you can just be consistent and consistently improve, then that's a longer-term approach.
Yeah, that's excellent. And that's why I wanted to do the video analysis on for the video members. Like, we do our once a month call where people send in their videos and I'll give them one or two things to focus on. I want to be able to do that for people in the membership, and not just the stroke analysis athletes that I coach, because even just like some people send a video every 3 months, for example, and sometimes you just need that little bit of a direction change, something to focus on, go and practice it. Could be a couple of months, and then you can just kind of check in and just adjust that direction as you need. Because with a lot of people, it's just like they don't have that in their squad. And yeah, I've coached squad. It's very hard to give that much feedback individually to athletes when you've got such a big group and you might be taking times and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's what I've seen with a lot of the video members recently is those that have sent in videos of being able to just get something that's specific to them, which is sometimes all you need to actually make a change. So yeah, great to hear it. And I appreciate being on the podcast and sharing this, because I was really pleased to see what an improvement you'd made in a reasonably short amount of time. And it doesn't come without getting in the water consistently. It doesn't come without actually thinking about this stuff as you're swimming. So you've done the work to get there, and I'm excited to see what happens over the next 6 to 12 months, because with what you're doing, it's you're really on track to hit those times and paces that you want to get to for your triathlons.
Yeah, cheers, Brendan. Like, yeah, your coaching and the effortless swimming, especially the YouTube and also the membership access, have been brilliant for me and really good for my swimming. So yeah, thank you as well.
My pleasure, and yeah, thanks for being a part of it. So yeah, all good luck for triathlons in the upcoming season, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Okay, cheers, mate.